Damu, let me know when you can see my.
Yeah, I just started the recording, and this is the September 13th meeting. Yeah, we
Let
can
me
see
know when
your
you can
screen.
see my screen. All right.
Yes.
So Damu just called me a few minutes ago. So if this demo doesn't work, blame Damu. Okay. Don't blame me. And so we were trying to figure out what new and exciting thing we could show. And Teo does a great job. I've seen Teo do this a million times. And I was like, man, I cannot fill Teo's shoes, but I'm going to give it a go. And so back in, I think it was around August, Microsoft introduced the paginated report visual. And so it is let me put a little disclaimer, it is a preview feature. Okay, and so you need to turn it on. If you go to File, Options, and Settings, choose Options, and then click on the Preview Feed option here. It's going to come up. There we go. Choose Preview Features, and you'll see down at the bottom, you need to make sure you check that box, and then close and reopen Power BI Desktop, and then the paginated report visual will appear. Okay, and so you'll see it over here in my visualization pane, the paginated report visual, and it's in preview. So I was testing this out to make sure it worked, and I did. Oh, are you guys seeing my screen? Somebody says they only see the swimmer.
We can see your screen.
Okay.
Anybody having issues with it, or?
Jeremy, do you see it, Jeremy? Okay, all right. And so it is a preview feature, and so if there are some bumps in the road along the way, just bear with me, okay? Oh, wait, I'm Patrick LeBlanc. I'm the Chief Technical Evangelist for Power BI at Microsoft. Nice to meet everyone. And so the first thing you need to do is create a paginated report. And I use a paginated report builder to create my report. Damu, I can put this somewhere if people want to download this. I'm just using the AdventureWorks database. And so I created my paginated report using the Power BI report builder, and then you need to publish your report. And I remember after I actually did a video on this on our YouTube channel, and somebody sent me a note, was like, hey, it's not working. I was like, did you check to make sure your report runs? So you need to make sure that when you publish your paginated report, yes, you need premium per user or a premium capacity. You can see that I'm in a premium per user workspace right now. And so you need to make sure your report runs. So the first thing you can do when you deploy it out, you go to your paginated report, you go to settings, not settings. You go to manage. Where? Settings. Go to manage. There we go. Manage. And set up your data source credentials. If you're pulling data from on-premises, you need to have a gateway running, but you just need to make sure those credentials are there. And then go run your report to make sure it runs. Before you even head over to Power BI and get this integrated into your report, you need to make sure it runs out in the service, okay? Once you do that, I know this will work. It actually takes a little bit to run it. They just actually updated it so you can see how many rows are coming through, okay? So you can see that it pulled 52,000 rows, and then it'll be there in your in the browser. It's just any other paginated report. Once you have that, then what you would do is think about why would you use a paginated report in Power BI? And so I thought about this. I was thinking about what's a good example? And a common theme, and we've done some videos on this and showed workarounds on how to get beyond the export limits that Power BI has, because everybody wants to export tons of data. I have no idea why they want to export tons of data after Damu spends weeks and weeks building this nice pristine model, and then someone wants to export his data. I have no idea, but that's what people want to do. And so you go here, click in the white space of the visual of the report that you're designing, and then click the paginated report visual. Now, you need to make sure that you are authenticated, that you've signed in the Power BI before you try to do this integration, or it's going to prompt you, okay? So go ahead and click connect. When you click connect, choose the report. It's really simple. And then click set parameters. And I remember the first time I did this, I actually was about to send Chris Finland. You guys know Chris Finland, he owns paginated reports at Microsoft. I was about to send him a message. I was like, man, why is this not working? Everything's disabled. Well, you need to make sure that when you set up your paginated visual, you bring in the values that you want to pass to your parameters. You can see there's a parameter dwell. So however many parameters you have, you probably should have an equal number of values in this section, because you're just mapping them. You're going to map them to those. And so I'm going to bring over year. And then now this will light up, and then I can choose the name of it. And then you can see I have all of my years selected. It creates a nice comma delimited list. And I'll talk about this a little bit in a bit. If there are default values, you can toggle this on too. I don't have any default values. Go ahead and see report. When I tested this out a few minutes ago, I got an error and I had to redo it. Remember, this is a preview feature. So do this, it's gonna load up, and it's gonna take a bit because it's pulling all the data for every year. I should have selected a year before I did this, but we'll be patient and let it pull it. It's not that much data. So imagine if you tried to go here and say, hey, I have all this data, I'm going to export this, right? So I'll choose export because I have 104 rows. Excel has this limit in Power BI. So I'll do this, and it's trying. I don't think I hit the limit on Excel yet, but if I hit the limit, oh, I did. So you can see I get this error. Your data is too large, sampling data. Some data sampling may occur. I'm just going to click cancel because I don't want to do that, right? And then I'll come back over here, choose something. So let's choose a smaller set. And you'll see right here, you get this prompt for apply changes. And this, you should leave this turned on, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. So I click this, and you can see that I have 52,000 rows, and it'll render. It's just kind of slow right now on my machine. But once it renders, it'll display my paginated report directly inside of Power BI, and it's 52,000 rows. Right. And you can see here, I can page through all the pages. If I click right here, and that apply changes button is going to appear again. And the reason I suggest that you leave that apply changes button there, because you could be going after a tremendous amount of data, and I'm live connected to my underlying relational data source. And so if that relational data source is not that fast, or if you're going after a whole bunch of data, this could take a bit. And so every time someone interacts with, if you had multiple slices on this page, and if you turned it off, it would just automatically try to render this paginated report every time. This way, it delays the rendering of the report until you're ready to apply those changes, right? And so now if I click apply now, it's gonna, run this and pull all 104,000 rows. If I go to the format, you can see there's lots of different options. The one I'm talking about right here is the auto apply changes. Make sure you keep that toggled off unless you know you're working with a really fast report that can render out the data pretty quickly. Because like I said, every time someone clicks on one of those slicers, it's gonna slow things down. But you can see it rendered my data out. And now if I want to export this, I can export this, and those limits that apply with Power BI no longer exist. I can export as much data out as I want. But again, why do you want to export data? Just use it inside of Power BI, okay? There's some other options. You can see I have my toolbar on. By default, I can toggle it to show parameters. If I click it, it's going to say, hey, apply the changes, but you can see my parameters here. If I want to have borders and shadows and things like that. Now, the common question I get is, how do you do that multi-select? Well, there's a couple of things to consider when you're doing your parameters, specifically around date times. And Jason Himmelstein over at BI Focal, he's got a blog post, a really good blog post that talks about this paginated visual. And the documentation that Microsoft provides also does a good job talking about the paginated visual. When you set up, if you use a date time in your parameters, when Power BI renders it, the dates don't match, so it won't do a good job of passing that value through. So you need to make sure you use one of the workarounds outlined in Jason's white paper or in the Microsoft documentation to accommodate that. Just in general, you should make sure that your data types match, because it just won't work. And then also, when you deploy your report out, and your paginated report and your Power BI report, as a best practice, you should put them in the exact same workspace, because it'll help with the rendering process. The last thing is, like I said, the most common question is how you do that multi-select. Because if I select multiple items, how do you pass those multiple items to that paginated report? And I just did something really simple. There's lots of ways you can do this inside of the paginated report. But if I go to my year parameter, you can see right here, I do allow multiple values. Just check that box for allow multiple values. And then in my SQL query or in your store procedure, however you want to handle it, you'll see right here, if I go to invoice details, the query itself, I just did an in, All right, we're a year in order. By doing that multi-value, paginated reports will automatically create a comma delimited list, which is an accepted item for my end statement, and my report runs successfully. That's it. Not much to it, Damu. I don't know if there's any questions, but there you go. That's all I have.
Thank you, Patrick. And if anybody has any questions, please do unmute yourself and can talk, or you can put it in the chat. I have a quick question. So with the paginated visuals, let's say if you have a Power BI service as well as on-prem Power BI report server, can you insert a Power BI report from your report server and then use it? No.
Nope.
Okay.
No, you can't.
It has
Good
to
question.
be on service.
So, yeah, can you use on-premises paginated reports in this visual? No, you can't. It has to be in the service.
Service. Okay, got it. Anyone else? Right. Let's see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions so far. I think you did a good job, so it's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damu. Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Yep.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, now let's go to Emel's session. And Emel, please take it away.
Thanks, Damu. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, excellent. So thanks for having me. My name is Emil Głownia, and today's session is a Power BI report usage dashboard. I'll start with the agenda. So a quick introduction. I'll be sharing today built-in usage reports that are available in Power BI service. And then an option how to do your own bespoke dashboard using the data that is available. And we'll go into the dashboard details, question and answers at the end. So just a quick introduction. My name is Emil Głownia. I'm a Microsoft Certified Solutions Expert in BI. I do BI for the last 10 years, but I've been doing business intelligence for the last 15 years with SQL Server and BI stack. And I do a bit of stuff, especially the consulting with my wife, who's a Power BI developer and works with me. This year, I published a book. It's available on Amazon for free. And it's a career with Microsoft Power BI. It's a short read, a kind of an hour read of purely kind of facts and tips about a career with Power BI, so suitable for beginners and also those who want to start or progress their careers or want to learn more about that. And you can get it on my website, ktnemil.com books, or just go to Amazon, and the Kindle version should appear as free of charge. Now, about my company, so it's KTL and Emil Limited. We co-founded it in 2011 when I started specializing in contracts, on-site contracts, and recently we've started offering BI consulting services globally on any sites using our service, which we called FlexiTeam, which is kind of a different way, a slightly different way of doing things, optimized in certain ways, which offers expertise, flexibility, and in particular a great price for the service. Here's just a little bit info. We have a small calculator where you can choose complexity of the project, urgency of the project, and the type, full type, part-time, or ad hoc. It gives you the pricing, this GBP pricing, and Currently, because we are new, we do provide new client discounts for first month, 3 months, or 6 months with discounts and pricing over here, which is, well, it's one of the lowest you will get. And for the expertise that you get and the flexibility of, I think we do have an offer that will appeal to quite a few people who are in need of Power BI services like ours. Now, we also do free consultations. So there is no commitment, just come in and speak to us, and we do offer on larger pieces of work some free development, so you can try it out us for a few days and see if in practice you like what we do, and then it's just kind of easier to start the project and move on. Now you can follow me on LinkedIn. So Power BI, we use it for posting stuff on LinkedIn, usually on a daily basis from Monday to Friday, different things, statistics about Power BI. So slightly different topics than what you see on Power BI, but very interesting from my point of view. So things that I'm interested in, I post it, and our personal accounts is Emil Głownia and Katie Głownia. And if you've got any questions after the sessions or would like me to clarify anything, just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll reply to you. So this session is report usage. One of the questions we can ask ourselves is how can we measure Power BI success? And obviously, as Power BI developers, we often go into the details. We develop things for days, weeks, or months, and then publish it, and people use it. But one of the things we can do is we can, after the deployment, after everything's done, we can look at the usage data, and it can bring us a wealth of information about the users and how they interact with the users from a kind of quantitative point of view with the data that is available in Power BI. So the questions we can answer are things like, are users using the reports? Obviously, you want a certain number of users to use the reports, and you can answer this question. And the next one, is the performance acceptable? So previously, we didn't have any data in the log files or in the usage report related to performance, but the new usage report, which I will show you in a minute, will show you that we do have information about the performance, how long it takes to load the information, to load the reports with data. So it can be very useful because obviously it's one of the key things. And who is using your reports? Obviously, it's not a website where we don't know necessarily who is using the website. It's a Power BI service, and we always know who is logged in, so we can track the users accurately. And we can answer many more questions depending on what you want to ask. Now, in order to access the options available of the usage metrics, you can go to the Power BI service, click the content in the workspace itself, and then when you click the 3 dots, there is an option, view usage metrics report, and that will generate a default usage report. You can also go to the top and when you are in the report itself and click the ellipsis button, the 3 dots, you can also click the open usage metrics, and that will open and generate the report. There are 2 built-in report usage metrics. One is called report usage metrics report, and that's the kind of old or classic usage report. And you will see there is a toggle that will be switched off. So it will say new usage report off, which I will discuss in a second. But then you can click the toggle and it will switch to usage metrics reports, which is the new experience report, which uses a different data source and also contains additional information like the performance statistics. So when you go with the classic, with the old one, this is what you will see. So you will have views per day, unique viewers per day, shares per day, total views, total viewers, total shares, total views rank, total shares rank, and viewers by users with the filters on the left, distribution methods and platform. Now, the data is kind of relatively basic because you can see that it only shows the trends on views per day, unique viewers per day. I personally prefer the unique viewers per day because we unlike a website, we can identify who the user is. So we can identify how many users use a report. The views, I personally prefer less. And you will see on the bespoke ones, I focus on the unique views. So we have similar view in here. You can see 3 months of data over here. And that's all you get in the classic. So there isn't that much information, and you need to ask yourself, is that sufficient for you to answer the question, are your reports being sufficiently used? So you can see one of the limitations in here by default is the fact that you cannot see an option to change which reports you view. So when you go to the report, it's for a specific report that we clicked in the previous option I showed you, and it shows a particular report, but there is no option to change it. So one way of dealing with that is going to editing the report and going to filters, adding a filter for the report. It might be there by default already, and then changing the report. Another thing you could do is edit this report, which you have permissions, which if you've got the permissions, you will have an option to add a slicer with the report name and make it a little bit easier, because currently it's just one report, and if you want an option to switch between reports, that's an option. Obviously, one of the limitations is also that it only shows one report at a time. And to me, when I think what's the most useful way to display data, what's the most usable way to get the insight quickly, then my preference is showing all reports, which I will show you on the bespoke version. Now there is a documentation available for the classic one on the service usage metrics on Microsoft website. Now the limitations that I've come across for that is, well, it's fairly basic information displayed, and it's for the last 90 days. So I think it uses some kind of logs to get the data, and it's only doing that for the last 90 days. Shows only one report at a time. You cannot modify underlining data model, so you don't have the option to download the Power BI model that it generated. There is no option to do that, so that's a limitation. And unfortunately, it doesn't track published to web data. So I use published to web on a few of my reports, and unfortunately, I don't see any statistics, but hopefully at some point this will be added as an option, so we can track this data as well. Regarding embedded reports, I'm not sure depending on the embedded option, it probably tracks some of it. So for instance, if you embed into SharePoint, I think that's being tracked. But if you embed into a website with different authentication, I'm not entirely sure this is being tracked. There might be a limitation on that. Now, the positive points are you can actually edit the report. So you get the default report. You can click edit, make your changes, save it. So that's a good thing. You can also connect to the data model using Power BI Desktop. And obviously what that means is that you can add your own DAX measures and expand it a little bit with the extra measures with little effort. And as far as I know, well, one option is you can export the data manually. So you will see different tables that are available. You can put a table and export the data. This is what I've done previously. And those with premium, I haven't tried this option myself, but there is a link you can get connect to and extract the data automatically if it's premium. Now the new usage report, so this is the toggle button. If you switch it to a new user, new experience, new kind of usage report, you will see several different pages. You will see this one as the first page. We have report opens, report page views, unique viewers, and report open trend. You can see the report open requests and the report viewers. So kind of similar thing that you've seen on the first page on the classic one, just presented slightly differently with a slicer over here, distribution platform on the right, and the users and pages on the right with report opens, total page views. So similar thing that you have seen in the classic one. Again, it's for a specific report, so you will have to do the same thing. You will have to go to the report, add a filter, report name to filter it out, or add it as a slicer to move between different reports. Obviously, you can go to different reports and go to usage, which will generate a new report. But if you want a single report, you can just save it with a slicer and switch between different reports. Now, the data itself, to me, it's again quite basic. So we only have open requests and report viewers, but we can see some trends of what it is. And then we've got the daily report viewers and weekly report viewers. So it's got some info to analyze. Now, what you get in the new kind of experience is a performance data. So this is can be very useful. So you can see that the typical opening time for all your for a particular report that you have selected is 8 seconds. Opening time trend is here, and for most users, your report opens within 3 to 19 seconds. So what they have, you will see that performance data is kind of focused on percentile. So you will see in the measures that have been created things like percentile 10, 10%, percentile 10th percentile, and then percentile with different bands, so 50, 75, 90, and it's being used on the report. So you can see on the daily performance, you have 25th percentile, which is the green line, and then the 15th and 75, and that shows the trend for this particular report. So you can see everything is below 20 seconds, and 25% of users kind of go below 10 seconds to open the report, with 7 days performance option over here. Now, on the right side, you also have countries, consumption, and browsers. Obviously, countries, depending on the organizations, for most companies is a single country, but there are that are global or a certain region. And then in browser, you can see the different performance in a different browser. So you can see in this particular case, mobile Safari is doing very well. Chrome is here and Internet Edge over here. This particular page, again, it's fairly basic. If you think about performance, we can typically do a little bit more than that. So if you feel like you need more, you have the option to play with the data, export the data, and do your own dashboard. Now, one of the things, and I think it was added later on, is the report usage across entire workspace. So I quite like this idea. So this is where I've hidden the report names, but essentially that's the list of the report names on the left. Number of active reports, total viewers, total views, total viewers, view trend, and unused reports. And we've got some basic informations like views, users, days, and the view trend, and the unique users on the right side. So similar kind of same kind of information, but presented by the list of reports. Now, what I don't particularly like is in here is I like the information, it's additional information, but I also kind of don't see any trends in here. So I have the reports, but I don't have the trends. In the previous one, I have the trends but for a single report. In here, I have all the reports, but not the trends. So it's kind of two different pieces of information that I believe you could just simply put in together and would be more useful. Now, you can find more information about that on the Microsoft usage report. On the Microsoft website, Service Modern Usage Metrics. Now, the limitations for the kind of new experience is the fact that it only shows last 30 days. And 30 days, to me, kind of is a little bit limiting because it's just 30 days. You cannot even show multiple months. The only thing you can do is show days or weeks, but you cannot show months in this particular case, so it's quite limiting. Now, it shows only one report at a time, except for one page that I showed you. You cannot modify underlying data model, and it doesn't track publish to web data. So similar limitations to the classic ones. And the positive points is performance load time statistics. For me, that's quite a big one because obviously when you deploy your reports, you kind of measure to a certain degree satisfaction of the users or a number of complaints based on the performance. So if there are any reports that take very long to load, you can identify that more objectively than just by a user saying it's running slow. You can just look at the performance of the report for all users that use it, and I think that's a very useful data. You can connect to the data model using Power BI Desktop and add your own measures. Now, those two are the available options. If you feel like it's got some useful information, you can analyze some data, but you feel like you would like to expand on it, you would like to get more information, because you do get kind of raw data only, then your option is to build your own usage dashboard. And it takes very little time kind of to do that. I also built it kind of something for myself, which you can use. So reasons why you may want to do that is, the first one is load historical data. So you can overcome the 30 and 90 days limit. You can export data manually, kind of once a month, or automatically if you have premium, and then append the data together, so you can build a view of multiple months, so you are not limited to 3 months, 1 month, or 3 months. You can have 6, 12 months, or multiple years. You can load multiple workspaces data. So the classic one and the new experience that I showed you is inside a particular workspace. It doesn't work outside of the workspace, but if you build your own dashboards, you can essentially export the data from multiple workspaces that you want to do the reporting on and put it together. So you can combine it together quite nicely. You can also have the option to load definitive list of users and reports. So the current reports that you have, it shows a number of active users and a number of active reports, but it doesn't necessarily show you reports that are not being used, or users that have not logged in the last 30 or 90 days. But you can create your own list and ask questions like, how many reports, which of the reports have not been used at all, or which of the users that should be using at least one report have not used anything at all. And then you can expand the data model to include additional info about users. For instance, you can put the department reports itself, so you can group together reports into a logical grouping, or add targets for the reports, which I will show you in a minute. And then a date dimension, we can make it a little bit more useful by working on the working days. So if you've seen the drops on the trends on the existing reports, it goes Monday to Friday, and then goes almost to 0 on weekdays. So if you would like to exclude weekends, so weekends and bank holidays, then you've got this option if you build your own dashboard. Now, what data can you get? In both options, the classic and the new experience, you can export the data, and you can export the data for user, report, date, and the fact table views. So in both cases, you have the same data for those dimensions and this fact table, and you can just export it, the data. Now, if you want more, you can, in the new usage model, there is more information, there is more data available. So for instance, the performance data on load times is one of them, but there is a little bit more than that. So you can explore what's available and export that. Now, this is the dashboard that I've created. So the way I design dashboards is I take a topic, I take kind of the topic which is report usage, and ask myself, what are the most important questions that I want to answer on my dashboards, and how do I make the interactivity on the report most usable, so it's easy to get more insight about it. So when I asked myself, I thought, well, first of all, I want to see data not as views, page views or unique views, but as users. So for me, that's more useful than by views. Obviously, on websites, we have page views, sessions, but that's because there is usually a limitations to identify a user itself. In here, we don't have this limitation. We know exactly who uses it, and my preference, personal preference, you can obviously change it to views, page views, but my personal preference is to see how many users use it over a period of time. So we have all users, we have active users, we have users usage, and the number of reports. So you will see I have auto-generated some of the data. So it's in this particular case, every user uses the data. So we've got 100%, but that may not be the case in real world scenario. For instance, when you load, when you have a dimensions, you have a definitive list of users. Now let me show you this in Power BI, so we get some interactivity. So this is auto-generated, and I've got the sample data. You will get it, but in here I have the report and the number of users. So for me, just seeing number of users in a particular period of time, you can see in here I've overcome the limitations of 3 months data limit. So I've got in this particular case 7 months. So in the period of 7 months, I can see that this report has been used by 85 users out of 100. I can click that. That's going to show me how it varies in different months. And also at the bottom, I have users usage percentage by week. So this is the usage comparing active users to total users, and you can see that that changes to about 25 to 30 several percent. And then I've got names also auto-generated random names that shows me who uses the report. So the interactivity is quite simple. I personally like simplicity. So you simply, in this particular case, have a list of users. You can click it. It shows you the months. You can click the particular month, let's say May. It shows you the users and it shows you the May's usage. So a few simple clicks and you can get quite useful information about the usage, the trends of it. However, this is still very basic data, so it's what I consider raw data. We haven't added anything more useful. So the limitations I see myself in here is, okay, nice, you've got number of users and you've got the trend, so fine, it gives me certain information straight away, but it doesn't tell me certain things. So for instance, if I look at the users and I've got 85 users in here, I need to ask myself a question: is that good or is that bad? So for instance, this report might be used by everyone, so it may have actual expected usage, total users of 100. So if I have 85 out of 100, that's 85%. So that's not too bad. But if the total number of users for this report is actually 70, and I have 85 users, that's over 100% usage, and that would be considered very, very good. But I don't see this, and I don't see that because I don't have a target for each report. So one of the easy ways to expand this information is to add the target for each report. So for instance, if we have some reports in here, 16 users, the target for them might be, let's say, 50, 10, or 25. And I don't know what it is, so I only see a value 16. So some of these may be overperforming or underperforming, and I just don't see this. And the only way for me to see this is if I add a target. And the target I can add for entire report or for a specific month over here. So you've got some options. So looking at the active users, that's okay. For instance, if I put, if I select one of the reports, which is 31, it shows me on average monthly is 30. But again, what it doesn't show me is what the overall target per month is, or what the target for every month is. And I don't see this information. I can see only raw data, so it's kind of limited. And I will show you how I expanded this in a minute. And the same is for limitations is for usage. So for instance, it shows the usage. So for instance, if I go to the first report, the usage is 25 to 33%. And if I go to this one, the usage is 4%. So the usage drops 4%. That's not necessarily useful information for me, because it's 4% comparing to all users, which is in this case 100 users. So what I would prefer in here is comparing usage, total active users for a particular report to target. So my target, let's say, might be 10 in here. So the usage would be in the region of 110. Or 100% per week might be less, not 4 or 3%. So this for me is not that useful. And one more things on the right side is I've got the users, but it might be useful to actually group the users for different departments, because if you think about it, the reports are typically developed either for a specific group of users, which might be part of a different one department or multiple departments, or used for the entire organization. So typically grouping by department might be useful. What I don't see in here is which users don't use a report. So one of the options I've got is to add additional information for each report. Just select who should be using it if I wanted to go more granular, and that would enable me analysis of who supposed to be using it and is not using it. And it could also allow me to analyze who is not using it, but it's in the same department or has the same title and is potentially a candidate to be using the report. So it can help me to identify users that would find certain reports useful, and that can be a very useful analysis. So let me show you what I discuss on the usage targets. So this is again, random data, but you can see what I've done in here. I've got a target and I've done the usage. So I've taken number of users divided by target, and that gives me the usage of 80%. Now, what I can now quickly do is sort it by usage, and I can see some of the reports are overperforming. So that's excellent. But what I'm usually most interested in is that reports that are not being used that much. And you can see in here, if I sorted by usage from lowest to highest, I can see straight away by simply clicking twice the header that those 3 reports are in the range of 60%, and I could click one of them for instance, and you can see what I've added in here is a target line based on the target of this report, and you can see that every month is consistently below the target. So to me, that's now more useful. I added more information and I have more context, and that's more useful information. I can take action to do something about it, and hopefully that will increase to the target. I can identify the reasons why this is below the target. And this is in here as well, below target. And if we go to a different way, from highest to lowest, you can see, for instance, in this one, it's overperforming on here instead of, but in July is below the target. So I think I find it quite useful. Now, on this particular report, if we look at the users usage, what I have done is I've added report users usage based on the report target. So you can see that the original was 5 to 7%, which for me wasn't particularly useful. But if I look at the target, I can see that this is in the region of 70 to 60%. So that's more useful for me now, because I can see, for instance, in this particular month, 100% usage was used. So all users, expected users, have used it, and there are weeks which is lower. So you can discover certain patterns more easily, and it's more meaningful to you because you compare it to a target. So you can click different reports over here. The data is more useful now. Now, one of the things that we can also do in here is look at the users. So we've got users in here. So let me switch to users attributes. And what I have done in here is a basic thing. I just added department, so I can expand finance and I can see all people in finance, all people in IT. So if I, for instance, I'm interested in IT, I can click IT and it shows me all the reports that are being used by IT and the number of users and the usage of it. So for instance, some of it will be predominantly used by certain departments. Let's see if we've got this random data, so we don't have this very well kind of real data, which would be more useful to analyze. But for instance, operations, there is one report that seems to be, well, this one report usage is 103%. So it seems if I click this one, you can see if I click this particular report, 31 users, and all of them are from operations. So you can see it's a specific report for a specific department. And what you can also do in here, you can see that active users are 31 and total users are 43. So if I expand that, what I can do quite easily in here, let me do that again. I think it was this one. What I can do quite easily in here is identify users that don't use it. So for instance, if it's 31 out of 43, there is a high probability that everyone somehow would benefit from this report. So I could go to these users that don't use it and ask them, look, there is this report that is being used by 31 people on a regular basis. Would you be interested in having a look and see if there is anything useful for it? So we can become quite proactive about the reports we have with our users. So it's not only how many users use it, it's we can go out and say, we identify this number of users who may benefit from it. And the more information you have, so for instance, this is just department, but we can add a title and different attributes to the users and analyze it. We can also add information like a new joiner or a lever, and see additional attributes related to that. So you can see just by adding department, I can do quite interesting analysis. Now, this is for now what I have. One piece of information that I hope to add in the future, just to expand on the this particular webinar, is performance data. So I don't have performance data in here, but I'm thinking that instead of creating a separate page, I probably will be fine in just utilizing one of those boxes in the middle with the trend and adding the performance data and doing things like either a percentile that is available by default, or just some averages, max, means, and presenting the data. So I don't have it in here, but it's something that you can expand on. Now there is a little bit more more data available in the new kind of experience. So you can also have a look and see if there is anything useful from the data available. And secondly, you can think about what is it that you may potentially want to add, like for the report itself, like a grouping. You could add a grouping for each report and group them together and analyze it by from that point of view. You could add certain attributes to the report itself. For instance, you can categorize the reports by the frequency, where you say it's an annual report, so you don't expect much usage, only a certain period of time, quarterly, monthly, ad hoc, or anything like that, and further kind of enrich the data about the reports and expand on the analysis that you have. Now, one of the good things about this usage report is that you can simply get it. So it's I will be sharing this report. You can download it from my website. I will make it available, and you can simply export, either use the existing reports, or if you like the bespoke one that I have, you can export the data to CSV files, plug it into this one, and simply start using it with very little effort. Obviously, if you need help, you can use our consulting services to help you out. But if you are okay to do it on your own, feel free to just download it and use it. One more thing that I've come across, let me just share my screen. There is an option of PowerShell. So logs, you can use PowerShell to extract data from logs, but as far as I've seen, it's a little bit less useful than the normal one. But there is also a PowerShell, I think a different one, available in this article, which shows data differently. So it's from Power BI tips. It's PowerShell related, but this is how they present the data. So if you find it useful, you can also have a look at this report and this report and combine it with other things. And there is a little bit of PowerShell over here. So that's for information. Now, what you get, as I mentioned, you do get the Power BI dashboard, and just use it yourself. It's free of charge. There is sample random data that I will make available that you can use, but then obviously the key one is that you can plug it into your own data. One thing that I haven't mentioned is on this dashboard that I've created, I haven't got an option to select a different workspace, but you can export the data from multiple workspaces and obviously just put the workspace name on the report and make analysis on multiple workspaces. I'll share PowerPoint slides, and webinar recording will be available. So that's all from me. If you've got any questions, feel free now to ask the questions. And if you'd like to ask anything personal questions, kind of private with me, use my LinkedIn profile. I'm happy to answer anything that you may have to ask.
Thank you, Emil. That was a great presentation and a lot of information on the analysis of the logs. If anybody has any questions, please you can unmute yourself and you can ask, or you can put it in the chat. I can ask with Emil.
I have a question. I've never tried to access the data source on the service from Power BI Desktop. Could you just demo that? Because I've never done it.
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Sorry. So you just want to access the data set. Let's see if I can find this particular one. So let me open a new report. It's very simple. It's on one of the available options. So let me just wait for this to load. So if you go to get data, let me just go to more in this case, so you have a bigger picture of that. If you go to Power Platform, there is an option of Power BI datasets, and that's if you connect to that, that will show you all the available datasets. And let me actually find it what we were looking at. So usage. You will see that when you generate the usage report, it will generate a data set for you. So I've got two data sets available for me. I can click one of them, click create, and this option will allow me to use the existing reports and add new measures. This is the new experience. You can see model measures, let's say load times, and that's the percentiles for different percentiles and all the data that we have available. So if we wanted to export it, for instance, users, you would just simply get the user key and I think it's unique users in a table. If you do it manually and then just export the data, it's just one user in this case. But yeah, you can just simply export the dimensions and facts, which was one of the slides, by connecting like that and using the new report.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else has any other questions? And can you put up your URL for your website so that they can download the links for the report? Well,
I don't have it on the website yet, the files, but I will create it after this session.
okay.
I will try to do it in the next few days and share it with you, so you can send a link. And anyone who wants to get it on LinkedIn, just send me a message and I will share it with you on my LinkedIn as well.
Sounds good. All right. So thank you, Emil. That was a great presentation, and I don't see any other questions popping up. Okay, I think And the next meeting is on October 4th. That is on Data Modeling 101 by Razor Rat. And that meeting is not going to be recorded, so please be there on the meeting so that you can watch it live. Be great. Yeah, thank you very much, and appreciate everyone joining tonight. And have a great evening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.